Getting you ready for game time. Join me, Sal from Behind the Arc Basketball, as I announce play-by-play. Make sure to smash the like and subscribe, because now we're about to go live. Entering the pregame, we now present Sal from Behind the Arc Basketball. And what's good, everyone? Here we go. We have finally arrived here. It is Selection Sunday. Bracket reveal for the NCAA Tournament will be happening just over a half an hour from now, the greatest day of the year, basically Christmas Day for all college basketball lovers. And once again, I'm back with my live reactions here, 2025 NCAA Tournament bracket reveal in a little bit. Going to be going over some of the teams in the bubble before the start of today's brackets. The number one seeds, basically 4 number one seeds should be locked in as the top number one seeds in the bracket. And then also going to talk about the SEC, that they could have a record. They should be on record pace for the most bids ever by a conference in the NCAA Tournament. The Big East has the most bids back in 2011 with 11 bids. Back in 2011, the SEC, just a phenomenal season for them. 14 out of 16 teams playing extremely well this year, where they could have upwards to 14 teams in the bracket. Only 2 teams are completely out of the bracket from the SEC, being LSU and South Carolina, but everybody else fair game. They have approximately 11 teams who are locks in the bracket, and possibly 3 other teams or 4 other teams, 10 or 11 teams in the bracket, and 3 or 4 other teams right now on the bubble. If you guys are new to this stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe. Pumped up for this one. I'll keep you guys posted on Wisconsin versus Michigan. That game is going down to the wire. Looks like there's going to be no bid stealers this year. Out of the Americans, so only 1 bid stealer this entire tournament, and that came from the Mountain West with Colorado State. Colorado State have been playing out of their minds recently. They're number 1 in the last month shooting the 3-ball, better than anybody else in the nation for the Rams. So that's a team to look out for coming up in the tournament. What's good? Anastasia, welcome in. Lucas on the street, welcome back aboard. I think right there he hit it right on the nail. Looks like it's going to be Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. Those look like the number 1 seeds. Tennessee was in play for today, entering the game against Florida, but Florida able to handle Tennessee by 9, win that game this afternoon. Bradley, welcome in. The Cards going to get their name called. It's been a long time there. 867 days. That was the year before COVID. 2019, the last appearance for Louisville here. My man Bradley pumped up for this one. Hit us up in the chat who you guys are a fan of. We got a SPC here, like in Tennessee fan. Welcome in. Thanks for joining in. I cover play-by-play of basketball games, hoping to cover college hoops for the March Madness tournament. Some live streams coming up next week, so gonna be a fun time And if you guys would like to join in on the Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Challenge group, feel free to do so. That link is posted in the chat. All are welcome to do so. Last year, we had over 40 plus people join in. I think as of today, we have 13. I recently activated that link, so make sure to go and join if you haven't done so. We're going to use ESPN once again, the tournament challenge this year. Michigan looks like they could win this right now. What a turnaround, what a difference a week makes for Michigan. They were really slipping last week. There was a lot of concern for Dusty May's squad going in to the tournament, and they have completely righted the ship in the correct direction for the Wolverines. And if they can make this free throw here, Trey Donaldson, he gets it off the bounce. 4-point lead for Michigan, 57-53 with 12 seconds left to go. Looks like Michigan is going to win the Big Ten Tournament Championship over Wisconsin. Wisconsin shot missed off the back rim. They came up with an offensive rebound, missed the three again. And Michigan is going to win the Big Ten Tournament Championship. Wow. What a week of difference makes there. Dusty May. What a turnaround for Michigan. Him and Pat Kelsey, head-to-head, in my opinion, a National Coach of the Year this season. Both of those teams with two amazing turnarounds. And also Rick Pitino for St. John's. He took an average projected team to, it looks like, a 2 seed in the bracket, winning the Big East Tournament Championship. So those are 3 head coaches there that I just named that should be in the national head coach conversation for National Coach of the Year. Dusty May about to win the Big Ten Tournament Championship, the former FAU coach in his first season for Michigan. Patty, welcome in. Thanks for joining in. Scott Nichols on the street, welcome on board. Thanks for joining in. Louisville is probably going to be around like a 5 or a 6 for them, most likely. So I've been seeing a lot of 6s. I think if they beat Duke, they probably would go up to a 5, but I see in consensus between Joe Lunardi of ESPN and Jerry Palm of CBS, both of them have Louisville as a 6, yeah. So I think they're going to be on the 6th line. That's a dangerous spot because these 11 teams are going to be the bubble teams that they face unless it's a mid-major. There's a couple mid-majors like Drake and UC San Diego that might be pushed up from a 12 to 11. So it all depends who they get into the matchup, but there could be play-in game teams that take on Louisville in that round of 64 matchup. Somebody coming from the play-in game would not be shocked if that team's Oklahoma or Vanderbilt. I think St. John's is going to be a 2. Yeah, St. John's deserves to be a 2. I know people talking about their strength of schedule is not so great this year, but man, they just swept through the Big East. They only picked up 4 losses this entire season, and yeah, I think St. John's going to be a 2 seed for this year's tournament. So here we go, number 1 seeds. We'll see if this is correct, but I'm thinking that the number 1, there's some debate here about the overall number 1 seed for whether it's Duke or Auburn. Auburn has the overall body of work, but Auburn's been slipping recently for them, so they're just 1-3 in their previous 4 games, so it's a bad time to get cold. Colorado State's in. Colorado State won their conference tournament championship yesterday, so they're in. They're the lone bid stealer in conference tournament championship week, so we only had 1 bid stealer. Looks like UAB is not going to beat Memphis. 80-70 Memphis. 10-point lead with 1:45 left to go. Yeah, I'm thinking probably a 6 for Louisville. So Auburn seems like more of the consensus, even though Auburn does have 5 losses. Duke has 3 losses. The thing is, the SEC was an absolute gauntlet this year. The ACC is going to get, it's sad. They're going to get 3 teams in the bracket, Duke, Louisville, and Clemson, whereas the SEC could get uppers to 14. I'm going to go over to SEC in a little bit here. That poll is open. Make sure to vote in that poll. How many teams will make the tournament from the SEC? That poll is open. Make sure to vote for it. 1 through 11, that's the first pick. 12 teams, 13 teams, or 14 teams. If they get more than 11 teams, that would set a record for NCAA tournament history. The current record is 11 teams by one conference. That was set in 2011 by the Big East with 11 total teams. The SEC with a great chance to break that today. So Auburn has a worse record than Duke, but the overall body of work for Auburn, they're 28-5, 16-5 in quad 1 games, which leads the nation. Duke 9-3 in quad 1 games, much easier conference. but just simply impressive what Duke did. They beat Louisville yesterday by 11, able to get past North Carolina. They were up in that game by 24. UNC with a brutal lane violation, and I don't think they're going to make it, honestly. For North Carolina, 1-12 against quad 1 opponents. When you compare the rest of the teams in the bubble, like Oklahoma and Arkansas, Baylor, I don't think they're going to make it in. Utah State has more quad 1 wins than North Carolina. Yeah, North Carolina is in a very difficult spot. They have more quad 1 losses than Xavier as well. Xavier went 1-9 in the quad 1 games. So that's another team that could be left out of the bracket today. Houston, so behind Auburn and Duke, I think it's probably going to be Auburn as the number 1 overall seed, even though the rankings have Duke as the top team ranked in the nation. It's just that the overall body of work is leaning towards Auburn than Duke with a lot of bracketologists. But after those two, Houston is quietly putting together a solid season for them. 30-4, their second year in the Big 12. Big 12 tournament championships for Houston. 14-3 in quad 1 games. That is number 2 in the nation, right behind Auburn in quad 1 victories, tied with Michigan State in quad 1 wins. And it's going to be Houston coming into the bracket just tearing it up. 13 straight wins in a row, 4 losses that they've got by a combined 14 points, and 3 out of those 4 losses were in overtime, and the only team that they didn't lose to in overtime was a 5-point loss against Auburn on neutral court. The 3 other games they lost in overtime for Houston, so they look like they're probably going to be the third best 1 seed in the bracket, and then the 4th best 1 seed, the final 1 seed goes to Florida, which Florida low-key had an outstanding season. 30-4. Last year I gave Florida a lot of high praise. Second half of the year they really torched the competition. Second half of the season. This year, they're blowing out the competition by double-digit wins in the toughest conference in America, the SEC, and how they did it, manhandling team after team after team. They smoked Alabama yesterday. They beat Tennessee by 9 to win the SEC tournament title this afternoon, and this Florida team looking to just go deep in the bracket. They got some real good balance. They're a deep team. They're physical. They got a lot of great guards on their team. Florida is projected as a number 1 seed. They're the final 1 seed for Florida, a record of 30-4 this year. So that's what we're looking at most likely, the 1 seeds, because some years we come into the bracket and we're talking about who's the 1 seeds. We're not sure who the 1 seeds are. This year, we basically should have set in stone these 1 seeds in these 1 seeds right here. Auburn, Duke, Houston, and Florida. Those 4 teams look like they're definite 1 seeds ahead of everybody else because there's a gap between 1 and 2. Florida beat Tennessee. Tennessee's a 2 seed. And then St. John's most likely going to be projected as a 2 alongside, I see ESPN and CBS both have Michigan State and Alabama as 2 seeds, what they have. So that's what we're looking at most likely heading into this bracket. I put that question up on the poll. If you haven't done so already, feel free. I'll leave it up throughout this stream here. But I get the question up there as a poll question. How many teams will make the tournament from the SEC? First one is 1 through 11. Second one is 12 teams. 13 teams is the third answer, and 14 teams is the final answer there. So we're looking at a potential historic tournament in terms of teams here out of the SEC. Big East had 11 bids back in 2011. That's currently the most teams all time in the bracket. SEC, I think, is going to shatter that today. 16 teams total in the conference. Only 2 teams we know are going to be out. So that's going to be South Carolina and LSU. Both of those teams have losing records. Both of those teams nowhere close to the bracket. But everybody else, 10 teams should be a lock. These are the 10 teams from the SEC that should be a lock. Auburn, Florida, Alabama, Tennessee, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Ole Miss, Missouri, Mississippi State, and Georgia. So those teams there, those 10, should be locks. After that, 4 teams on the bubble right now. Arkansas, Vanderbilt, Oklahoma, and Texas. I'll go over that bubble in just a moment because they could have upwards to 14. What's concerning about Texas is their record for them. They got 15 losses, even though their net ranking is better than a lot of teams in that grouping. They're ranked at 39 in the net. That's better than Vanderbilt, who could be sweating it out today for Vandy for them. Xavier, Texas has a better net ranking than Vandy, Xavier, Indiana, Ohio State, Boise State, and San Diego State. I'll go over the bubble here in just a moment. Also, they got a better net ranking than Oklahoma as well, though Oklahoma won the previous matchup against them and only lost by 1. They have a couple close losses. I'll go over Oklahoma first here in just a moment. So what's good? Avi, Seth on the stream. We got Diamond McCrab back in once again here. He puts out UC Irvine. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be enough for UC Irvine, honestly. Their net rankings in the 60s. It's unfortunate. I mean, I would love to see 2 teams out of that Big West. What a season UC San Diego had. Their first year as an NCAA tournament eligible, and they won yesterday the Big West Tournament Championship. But I'll start here with a bubble. I'll go through Oklahoma first. Oklahoma, according to the 2 bracketologists on the major network, they have Oklahoma safely in the field. Joe Lunardi, ESPN's got Oklahoma as a 10 seed. Jerry Palma, CBS, is Oklahoma as a 9 seed. They won games in their conference tournament to get and advance their seeding further off of that cut line list and around a 10 or a 9 seed for Oklahoma. 20-13 record. They went just 6-12 in the SEC, but they got some key wins, and that's what's helping them out because they're 7-11 against Quad 1 teams, 3 wins against Quad 1A opponents for Oklahoma. They do have a Quad 3 loss in there. That's the thing. I'll go over their 3 wins, but they've played so many close games. They played 14 games decided by single digits. Their last game, they lost to Kentucky with a half a second left in the SEC tournament. They went 8-6. In close games by single digits this year. Oklahoma has wins over Arizona, Louisville, Michigan. They smashed Vandy by 30. I think Vandy is going to be sweating it out today. I think they're probably going to be like the last team in as a play-in, most likely for Vanderbilt, because they slipped down late stage of the season. Oklahoma beat Arkansas, a road win at Arkansas, a road win at Texas. They beat Mizzou by 12. They beat Georgia by 6. And they started off red hot, started off 13-0. They're 7-13 ever since. But I think what's saving them is that they played so many close games. They lost by just 1 against Kentucky in the SEC tournament. They have just 1 bad loss. That was against LSU by 3. So just so many close games there for Oklahoma. Despite the 6-12 conference record, I think there's a good chance we'll see them in the bracket, most likely on that 10 seed line today in the bracket reveal. Arkansas, another team in a similar case on the bubble, projected as a 10 seed each by Joe Lunardi at ESPN, Jerry Palma, CBS, 20-13 record. They have a better conference record than Oklahoma, 8-10 in the SEC, but 2 fewer Quad 1 wins, 5-10 in Quad 1 victories. They're perfect, though, in Quads 3 and 4, which is great. They have 0 Quad 3 and 4 losses. So they only got 1 bad loss. They got shredded at South Carolina in mid-February by 19. That loss really hurt them. But then they redeemed themselves and they eliminated South Carolina from the SEC tournament for them. So that's a Quad 2 game because there was a road loss at South Carolina. Just the manner it happened, they lost by 19. That was not a good sign for Arkansas. But here's the wins they got. What's saving them is that win on the road at Kentucky. They beat Kentucky by 10. They won on the road at Texas. They got a couple good road wins. That's why it's saving Arkansas. Also, number 21 strength of schedule. They beat Mizzou. They beat Texas in overtime. That's a huge win over Texas, which Texas may be the team left on the outside for them. Wins over Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, Michigan, who just won the conference tournament championship. That was a neutral court win back in December. That's going to help out raise the ceiling for Arkansas for sure. So I think they're in. Michigan today really straight in that case. Baylor is on the bubble. What's working against them is their record. I think they're going to be in, though, 19-14. They went 10-10 in the Big 12. 9 seed projected by Joe Lunardi, 10 seed by Jerry Palm. They're 5-13 in Quad 1 games, 6-1 in Quad 2, 2-1 in Quad 3 games. And they do have some, what's concerning about Baylor, they do have a great net ranking. They're number 30 in the net. That is great for them. So they get a great net ranking. They played an incredible schedule, number 7 in the nation in strength of schedule. And what's saving them is these wins. They beat St. John's in overtime. That's a humongous win against St. John's. That is saving them there. Arkansas, they won by 5. Baylor beat Kansas by 11, beat West Virginia by 3 in overtime. But they do have some bad losses in the mix as well. They lost at Colorado by 2, lost at Cincinnati by 2. Cincinnati is not going to make it in for them. They were on the cut line going into the conference tournament. Then they got eliminated pretty early on in the Big 12 tournament, so they will not be in on this selection show. And then Baylor lost a home game against TCU by 3. So, what I'm concerned about Baylor here, I think they're going to be in, but they're just 2-8 against NCAA tournament teams that's in their conference in the Big 12. So they just haven't beaten those teams of like high caliber in the conference. They have wins over Kansas and West Virginia, 2 teams that have slipped back entirely that Baylor has won against, but they have losses against Arizona twice, Houston twice, lost against Iowa State, BYU, and got swept by Texas Tech twice. So, yeah, it's concerning for them as well. They're on the cut line for Baylor, which is very weird to say because they won a national championship 4 years ago. And here we go. West Virginia I'm going to talk about next. So going through SEC and Big 12. I kind of did these in order, and then I'll get North Carolina in a little bit as well. I'm going to go through Vandy and Xavier too here. Bryant, I heard the seeding's possibly a 15 or a 16. West Virginia, Jerry Palm has them in the play-in game as an 11 seed, a 10 seed for ESPN's Joe Lunardi. So it is wavering here on both of those seeds for West Virginia. West Virginia 6-9 in quad 1 games, 4-4 in quad 2. What's good? They got no bad losses in quads 3 and 4, perfect 9-0. This is what's saving them here. Key wins: they beat Gonzaga by 8 in overtime. That was on around Thanksgiving weekend. They beat Arizona by 7 in overtime. They beat Iowa State by 7. They beat Kansas by 1. They do have a bad loss to Pitt, though. They lost by 24 against Pitt. They have some pretty bad losses recently, too. They lost to Colorado. That's why it's concerning here. They got eliminated by Colorado in the Big 12 tournament earlier this week. They lost that game by 7, so that's concerning. That dropped them probably from a 9 seed to, who knows, either a 10 or an 11 for West Virginia. And they're in the same case as Baylor, where Baylor went 2-8 against conference teams who are in the NCAA tournament field representing the Big 12. West Virginia went 2-7 against those teams, and they haven't beaten an NCAA tournament team in 3 months for West Virginia. Last win came in mid-January against Iowa State. So it's been a long time since they beat a team that's firmly in the field out of the Big 12. That's what's the concern is about West Virginia. But I think they're going to be in for them, most likely a 10 or an 11. Vanderbilt, I think they're going to be sweating it out. Honestly, I can see them get sent to the play-in game. Joe Lunardi has got Vandy as the 11 seed in the play-in. Jerry Palm of CBS has them as a 10 seed. Vandy went 20-12, 8-10 in the SEC, just 3-7 on the road though. 5-9 in quad 1 games, 4-3 in quad 2, perfect at 11-0 in quads 3 and 4. 47 in the net. That's much lower than a lot of teams around on the bubble line. That's concerning. But what's also concerning, they played the 331st toughest schedule in non-conference. They smoked cupcakes in the non-conference schedule. When you weight the schedule, it's 24 in the nation when you added all those SEC games that Vanderbilt had, but when you just rank the non-conference schedule, it's bottom 30 in the nation and worst non-conference schedule for them. So they beat up on a bunch of smaller schools in the non-conference schedule. Their best wins, what's saving them is a win against Tennessee by 1. They beat Tennessee by 1. They beat Kentucky by 5, Ole Miss by 5, A&M by 2, Mizzou by 4 in overtime. Bad losses, they don't really have any terrible losses, so that's what's working out well for them, is that they don't have any really bad losses. They lost to Texas in the SEC tournament, lost to Oklahoma by 30. Just not a good manner how they lost to some of these teams. That's the only thing. Lost to Arkansas by 13, lost to Drake by 11 for Vanderbilt. So they played an easy non-conference schedule for Vandy, but these are the best wins that they showed for the non-conference slate. They beat Nevada. They beat Seton Hall, Cal, Virginia Tech, and TCU. They scheduled some of the worst Power 5 teams that you could have imagined in the non-conference slate, and Vandy's not aware of that when you schedule games in months ahead of time. That's just the unfortunate part about it. Seton Hall did so bad this year, and California lackluster year after year after year after year. Virginia Tech had a pretty poor year as well. They just got the worst Power 5s out of all those teams in the mix that they put in the non-conference schedule. So for them, they're going to be very smack in the thick of things on the bubble, right on the cut line, I feel like, for Vandy in this bracket reveal. Going up next to Xavier here. Talking about Xavier right now. Joe Lunardi has them as a 12-seed play-in, first team out by Jerry Palm. 21-11, 13-7 in the Big East. That's a better record than most teams, but the Big East was lackluster this year. Not too great this season. What's not helping out Xavier? They're 1-9 in Quad 1 games, 8-2 in Quad 2, 12-0 in Quads 3 and 4. But what my concern is about Xavier, these teams that they lost to are also on the bubble for some of these teams. They lost to Cincinnati, their rival. They lost to Georgetown, which was nowhere close to the bracket. They lost to Villanova by 12. They lost to TCU by 4. So the good for them is that they're 7-1 in their previous 8. They lost by just 2 to Marquette. But the bad for Xavier, 1-9 in Quad 1 games. And they got crushed by Michigan by 25. And then those losses, the teams that you needed to win to get on the right side of the bracket, Cincy and Nova, those two teams that were also bubble teams below you that you couldn't beat. So that is concerning there for Xavier. Honestly, I thought that they were going to make a run and be in, but they're very similar to North Carolina, and that's why I think both of those teams are going to be on the outside looking in today based on the teams that they played. North Carolina now, we will go over right here. First team out of the bracket for both Joe Lunardi and Jerry Palm. Crushing year for North Carolina, and if they're the first team out this year, you can sum it up by that lane violation that crushed them against Duke that lost them the game. They got a better net ranking than most teams, net ranking of 36, but that net ranking gets inflated because part of that is crushing teams by double digits. So that's why Gonzaga is inside the top 10 in net ranking for them, even though they're going to be seeded probably around like a 6 or a 7 for Gonzaga because they destroy opponents by 25-30. North Carolina's in trouble today. Their best win is against UCLA. What happened to UCLA this week? They got smashed against Wisconsin. That certainly did not help out the cause for North Carolina. Everything completely went wrong this week that needed to get right for North Carolina. Bad losses against Stanford, Wake Forest, and Pitt. And then they have 13 losses this season, 22-13 for an ACC team that's lacking quality wins. That's not enough there. That's way too many losses. Lacking quality wins, 1-12 in Quad 1 games, 0-3 against Duke. They had their chances, multiple chances. Couldn't beat the big boys in the ACC. Clemson, Louisville, and Duke lost and got swept to Duke 3 times in the final time around without Cooper Flagg, without Malik Brown. Yeah, I think they're cooked for North Carolina. I think they're done. Texas here is a very, very interesting case. Joe Lunardi, Jerry Palm, both have Texas in the first 4 out next to North Carolina. And I think the reason why here is because of their record, 19-15, 6-12 in the SEC, where Oklahoma, a lot of bracketologists have them in. We're going to get to the bracket reveal in under 6 minutes here. So stay tuned, everybody. Just going through these bubble teams. If you guys are new in the stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe here. Very, very soon, going to get right to the bracket. Really appreciate everybody for joining in. Hit us up in the chat, by the way, who you guys are a fan of, who you guys are rooting for. You guys, the real legends here out on the stream. And also feel free to join in on the Behind Your Basketball Bracket Challenge group. Be a part of this year's NCAA Tournament Challenge. That link is pinned into the chat. Texas is an interesting case because it's only happened 3 times before that. There's been a 15-loss team that's gotten an at-large. 2019 Florida, that's the last time it's happened. 2018 Alabama, 27 Vanderbilt. They get the 16th best strength of schedule. They have a lot of good wins. Mizzou, Texas A&M, Kentucky, Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Texas A&M. But they do have bad losses. and this is the concern here. They lost to South Carolina by 15. They lost to Ohio State by 8. We'll get to Ohio State right after this. That's a bad loss there for Texas against Ohio State, another team that's probably going to sit right next to you on the cut line on the bubble. So what it comes down to, too many losses, 15 losses, is that enough for Texas to get in? And also they lost their last game against Oklahoma, and that was a game that basically determined who's in the bracket, who's out potentially there. So that is crushing for Texas. They could be on the outside looking in, and a big reason why is that 15 loss number that they have. Ohio State, first four out by Joe Lunardi, not even listed by CBS's Jerry Palm for Ohio State. 17-15. They beat Texas. They have 2 fewer wins than Texas, though, at 17-15. 9-11 in the Big Ten. Yeah, I don't think that's going to cut it for Ohio State. 6-11 in quad one games, 41 in the net, but 55 when it comes down to wins above bubble, and that's much lower than a lot of teams on the bubble. And they got some pretty bad losses here. They lost to Northwestern late February by 21. It was a home game against Northwestern. I mean, that's a terrible loss there. Lost against Nebraska by 8. Nebraska basically sums up the bubble this year, as you had a win into the Big Ten tournament final game of the season, and they lost to Iowa, and they were on the bubble going into that game. And also Ohio State lost to Pitt as well, and then got eliminated by Iowa in the Big Ten tournament. Just if you get eliminated early in your conference tournaments, it's not a good sign. Not a good sign right there. And 17-15, I just don't think that it's going to be enough to get it, especially when the team that you lost to fired their head coach on Friday. Fran McCaffrey got fired from Iowa, and Ohio State couldn't beat Iowa. Let's see, Mountain West. We'll go over these quickly here. Mountain West could get up to as many as 5 bids in the brackets. I'm shaking my head about that one. I think that's too many, because what have we seen the Mountain West do in the tournament besides San Diego State with that run to the national championship game 2 years ago against UConn? It's been first round exits by a lot of Mountain West teams. Utah State, 10 seed projection. Joe Lunardi, Jerry Palm, both have them as a 10 seed, should be in. 26-7 record, 15-5 in the Mountain West. What's working for them is their record, really good record at 26-7. They have just one bad loss against UNLV. Started off 15-1, 11-6 in their last 7. They're 2-4 in quad one games. They got one quad win higher than North Carolina and Xavier, so they should be in the field for Utah State. They don't have many bad losses. It's just that UNLV game that they lost by 3 on the road. They did beat St. Mary's by 7 at St. Mary's, so that helps out the cause. They went 4-5 against the top 5 teams in the Mountain West. San Diego State, they are right now, like, on the cut line. San Diego State, 11 seed play-in, each by Lunardi and Palm. Record of 21-9, 14-6 in the Mountain West. What is saving them? They beat Houston in overtime. That's what's saving them. They beat Creighton by 22. They're also 4-5 against Mountain West top 5 teams in that conference in the Mountain West. So they're saved by the win against Houston. I think Boise State's going to be the team on the outside. San Diego State went 2-1 against Boise State. Boise State did beat them in the tournament, though, in the Mountain West tournament. But for Boise State, 10 losses out of a Mountain West team, that seems like it's a little bit too much for them for Boise State. They're 1-2 against San Diego State. San Diego State beats them twice, but yeah, interesting about the poll here. So it must have reset or so I just eliminated that right now. Actually. Oh, yeah, 176 votes. Wow. It was showing nothing on my end. Thanks so much, everybody, for voting in for that one. I knew something was wrong. Like, people definitely were voting in or so, because I saw 0 on the poll for some reason. So here's the poll results out of the SEC. We got 43% going for 1 through 11, 21% going for 12 bids out of the SEC, 21%, 13 bids out of the SEC, and a max of 14. They would get at 13%. And really appreciate you guys for voting out there on the poll. Going to get to the bracket reveal in just a moment. Couple other teams that were in consideration, probably not going to make it in. Wake Forest, SMU, Dayton, and UC Irvine. So yeah, just blew right through the bubble teams for you guys. And here we go, bracket reveal about to start off in a matter of moments here. And big tribute out to Greg Gumbel, been calling Selection Sunday for ages, unfortunately passed away earlier this year. Just so sad when that happened there. The man, Greg Gumbel, and CBS starts off with a tribute right there to the man, the legend, Greg Gumbel. Yep, Jay Ramirez stands by his prediction. They're going to have a new champion. Yeah, stunning for UConn this year. UConn's looking like they're probably going to face a 1 seed in the second round for them. Here we go, bracket reveal. Let's go, everybody. If you guys are new in the stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe. I'm going to get my typing hands ready here to type away on this bracket. We're going to take a look at the top left region. I typed it in as the South because whoever gets this, either Auburn or Duke, the overall #1 seed, should be heading to the South region there to be represented in this bracket. And that question will be answered in a matter of moments, who the overall #1 seed in this bracket will be, either Auburn or Duke. Auburn, 16 quad 1 wins. That is more than any other team in the nation, though they did falter down the stretch, 1-3 in their last 4 games. Duke won the ACC tournament last night. They got 9 quad 1 victories. They're ranked #1 in the AP top 25 poll, but bracketologists have Duke as the second best 1 seed behind Auburn. And we'll see if that projection lies true, or if Duke was put as the overall #1 team in the bracket. They've been blowing out the competition this year, 19-1 in ACC games. Only loss came against Clemson. Clemson represented by 8 seniors, which they're going to make an interesting case for their seed, because honestly, I think Clemson could get a 6 seed, or Clemson could get a 3 seed in my opinion, but a lot of bracketologists out there have Clemson either as a 6 or a 5 instead of like a 3 seed for them, which they're ranked at number 10 in the country. So their seeding's going to be real interesting today. Here we go. Road to the national championship starts here right now. Teams awaiting throughout the country for the field of 68. Auburn, #1 overall seed in the bracket, does indeed go to Auburn. Did falter down the stretch, but still the overall body of work, 28-5 overall. They're going to be playing in the South region Thursday in Lexington, Kentucky. Going to take on the 16 seed in the bracket here for Auburn. That's going to be a play-in game winner. Alabama State in St. Francis. St. Francis had a losing record in their conference. The red flash out of Loretto, Pennsylvania, representing the NEC. Louisville gets an 8. Louisville completely gets shafted in this bracket. How in the world? They were projected as a 6 seed all around by bracketologists. They're playing, though, with their home state. That's a first-round game against Creighton. That's a big-time matchup. That's probably going to be the first game of the day at 12:15. 8 versus 9 matchup right there. Louisville and Creighton. Ryan Kalkbrenner have been in college for multiple years, got tons of experience. Michigan winning the Big Ten Tournament Championship right before the start of this bracket. Getting a 5 seed. Going to take on a 12 seed. That is stunning that Louisville gets an 8. They were projected as a 6. This game taking place on a Thursday out in Denver, Colorado. Michigan taking on the 12 seed in the bracket, as this will be UC San Diego. Top 5 in the country for UCSD in turnover force per game, steals per game, and also fewest turnovers per game. That is going to be a fascinating matchup. Michigan wins the Big Ten Tournament Championship, even though Big Ten Tournament champs have had their issues in first-round matches in previous years. Texas A&M gets the 4 seed, played on Thursday out in Denver. A&M got some tough physical dudes on that team. Best offensive rebounding team in the country, but watch out for Yale. Got a really good shot maker on that team. They took down Auburn last year. They're out for blood in the bracket once again, looking to make it 3-0 for the Ivy. 3 straight years, about to knock off a first-round matchup win. Ole Miss as a 6 seed. Really solid season for them this year. Going to take a play-in game winner, and this is San Diego State. And yes, they did make the bracket. North Carolina. 1-12 in quad 1 games, and they make the bracket. They get sent to the play-in against San Diego State. That's a Friday game out in Milwaukee. Unbelievable. Iowa State gets the 3 seed. This team is incredibly dangerous when healthy. 18-2 record when their starters are healthy. Lipscomb, 14 seed. 7 seed goes to Marquette. This game's going to be played in Cleveland, pretty close to where Marquette is. That's a tough matchup for New Mexico, who gets the 10 seed, has to fly all the way out to Cleveland, Ohio, to play this game for New Mexico. New Mexico, the Mountain West champions in the regular season. Michigan State gets the 2 seed out of this bracket, going to set up a legendary matchup between Marquette and Michigan State. Seems like we always have those 2 teams face off against one another in the second round every single year. Michigan State looking for revenge after last year's bounce out of the bracket against Tyler Kolek and Marquette. And Michigan State going to take it a 15 seed out in Cleveland. That will be Bryant, repping North Smithfield, Rhode Island. The Bulldogs, Phil Martelli Jr., winning the America East Conference yesterday. So that's what we see. Top left corner of the bracket, Auburn going to play the play-in game winner of Alabama State versus St. Francis University of Pennsylvania Red Flash. Louisville gets completely shafted. Projected for them to be a 6 seed by most bracketologists. They drop down 2 seed lines to an 8 for Louisville. They take on Creighton in the 8-9 matchup to face Auburn in the second round. Most likely there. Michigan gets a 5 seed. That's going to be a tough matchup against UC San Diego, who blew through the competition this season. Their best win came against Utah State by 2 for UCSD, but they got 2 guys that rank top 10 in the nation in steals per game. They rank top 5 in the nation in fewest turnovers per game, top 5 in the nation in steals per game, and they're averaging around 8.8 turnovers per game. They're forcing around 17 turnovers per game. They lead the nation in turnover margin, forcing teams into turnovers and turn to get over fewer times. That's a good team for UC San Diego. First time eligible in the bracket. Texas A&M and Yale. Very interesting matchup there. Yale, you give them multiple days to prepare for a matchup. The smart kids from the Ivy League. And they study and watch film. A&M, a really physical team. Not a strong, efficient type of team. It's all about second chance points for that team. If you're Yale, all you have to do, limit A&M on the glass. You can take that game right there in that matchup, put up a big upset if you're Yale there. Ole Miss going to face a playing game winner. I can't believe that North Carolina gets put in the bracket. I mean, that's a shame. They had multiple chances to win these games. I'm going to go right through UNC's profile once again. Just absolutely stunning. Here's UNC's profile. Coming into this bracket, both ESPN and CBS each had North Carolina looking on the outside, left out of the bracket. 13 losses as an ACC team. I mean, that's stunning that they're a part of the bracket. I mean, this better not be Virginia antics once again, what happened to Virginia, and they get shattered against Colorado State in the first round matchup, or in the playing game matchup. North Carolina has a quad 3 loss. A lot of the bubble teams don't have a quad 3 loss. They're clean in that slate. North Carolina's best win was against UCLA. I mean, did UCLA help out North Carolina this past week? I don't think so. UCLA gets smashed against Wisconsin. North Carolina has bad losses against Wake Forest. Stanford lost to Pittsburgh by 8. Just lacking signature wins. They went 0-3 against Duke. Lost against Duke in a lane violation without Cooper Flagg, without Malik Brown in the ACC tournament semis. 1-12 in quad 1 games. I mean, the writing's on the wall. Multiple chances right there. And shocking somebody gets completely left out. Looking on the outside is probably an SEC school. It would be unfortunate if North Carolina gets in, Vanderbilt doesn't get into the bracket. Texas right now is probably going to be left out, honestly. For what I've been hearing, the tournament committee, for what I heard, I think it was on ESPN this morning, there was chatter about the tournament committee not really taking Texas into account because they had 15 losses for them. Just so unfortunate. So Auburn in the bracket. Louisville, which was projected as a 6 seed, gets an 8 seed. Just stunning. Creighton, 9 seed. Michigan, they're underseeded for them. They were projected as either a 4 or a 3. And they won their conference tournament today. So this bracket must have been done. Like, I don't know if this bracket was done like 3 days ago or so. It seems like that's the case right now. And they didn't even take the last couple of days into consideration currently. UC San Diego was on that 11-12 seed line too, but they were capable of getting an 11 for them. I think when it's all said and done, Vanderbilt's going to be the team that is going to be put in the NIT after all of this because of North Carolina. That's tough right there. All right, so here we go. Top right of the bracket, second region, as we will be looking at the East region. Cooper Flag should be available for the tournament. 31-3 this season for Duke. And they will take on a 16 seed out in Raleigh, North Carolina in their home state in this first round matchup. Playing in their home state, that is great there for Duke, and that's going to be a playing game winner out of the Patriot League, American or Mount St. Mary's. American or Mount St. Mary's will be the team that they face. Mississippi State gets the 8 seed. Chris Jans and the Bulldogs back in the bracket once again. Going to take on Baylor. Baylor weighted a little higher than their projection. Baylor gets the 9. 5 seed goes to Oregon. Never bet in the first round against Dana Altman in March. Low-key, Oregon is a team to watch out for in this bracket. Liberty gets the 12 seed. Should be a fascinating matchup there. Liberty has been a team that's been in the bracket quite a while for like the last 6-7 years for them, and they usually give a good fight in that first round matchup. I think they took down Virginia a couple of years ago. Arizona as a 4 seed. This is going to set up a wild second round matchup. 2 former Pac-12 members, Oregon and Arizona, very well could see each other unless those teams look past their matchup, which Arizona going to take on Akron out of the MAC. There's been some MAC teams in the past that's pulled off upsets. 28-6 this year for Akron. It's going to be a tough game for them, playing all the way across the country at Seattle, though. BYU, one of the hottest teams in America for the second part of this season. They get a 6 seed. They work their way all the way up from out of the bracket in January up to a 6 seed. Well done there for the Cougars this year. That's a guaranteed Thursday game for them because they do not play games on Sundays. We got all the acronyms we're using for this game. VCU. BYU, VCU in the first round matchup going to take place in BYU, not too far away out in Denver, Colorado. Thursday, 3 versus 14 taking place out in Denver. Wisconsin gets the 3 seed. I agree there. No more expansions. I mean, you got 15 lost teams here that were considered for the bracket in a 68-team field this year. No more expansion. It's going to get way too hectic. Montana, Big Sky Tournament champion. Seems like they usually win the Big Sky. Beat Northern Colorado earlier this week to get there. That game's taking place out in Denver. St. Mary's gets a 7 seed. It's a little shocking there. St. Mary's' seed have been fluctuating. They had a 5 seed going into the game against Gonzaga last week for them. They're going to play in Cleveland, and here we go. So Vanderbilt is in the brackets. Vandy gets put in the bracket as a 10 seed for them. That's going to be a really good matchup there. Two completely different styles going after one another. St. Mary's just a lockdown defense, slows down the tempo. Vandy, they do struggle a lot on the glass for them, but they do score a bunch of points. Alabama, we could have two SEC teams play in the second round. That is very rare to happen. Alabama with a 2 seed playing in Cleveland on the Friday against Robert Morris. I remember Robert Morris took Villanova down to the wire. This was going back around 13 years ago or so. That was a 15-2 matchup there. Alabama's offense is so good for that team. Made it all the way to the Final Four last season, but that's what we look at the top part of the bracket. Duke will face the winner of American, the Patriot League tournament champion, or Mount St. Mary's, who upset Iona in the Metro Atlantic Athletic Conference. Mississippi State in an 8-9 matchup takes on Baylor. Oregon against Liberty. Be a fascinating matchup taking place out in Seattle on a Friday. That does not help out Liberty. That's a tough travel route there all the way across the country for Liberty to take on Oregon in the Pacific Northwest. That's very well could set up Oregon, Arizona in the second round. Former Pac-12 meeting there. Matchup in the second round. BYU, VCU. Those are two really good teams. VCU gets shafted. That is unfortunate there for VCU. They go up against one of the hottest teams in America. BYU, just so good from the perimeter for them. One of the best teams in efficiency for the last 30 days for BYU, and just ran into a complete gauntlet with Houston, who's playing just straight up incredible basketball for them for Houston. That's 30-4 this year. Wisconsin takes on Montana. That's a relatively easy matchup for Wisconsin. Usually the Big Sky doesn't pose any threat every single year for them. I remember Eastern Washington did push Kansas 4 years ago, coming back from COVID out of the bracket, but the Big Sky hasn't won a tournament game in a long time. St. Mary's takes on Vanderbilt. Very interesting matchup with two different styles playing out there in that game. St. Mary's going to want to slow down the basketball. Vandy's going to want to put up points and score on St. Mary's. St. Mary's been constant tournament team throughout on a consistent basis for them, and they believe that they're better from last season for St. Mary's. So that should be a really good matchup there in the 7 versus 10. And then Alabama against Robert Morris rounding out the grouping right there. So that's what we got. Top half of the bracket. If you guys are doing the stream, smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe as we are right through the first half of the bracket. Feel free to join in on the Behind Your Basketball Bracket Challenge group. Holy smokes, you got 1,000 plus people watching right now. You guys, the real legends, MVPs out here to streams. I'm hoping to cover some of the college hoops games as well coming up for the NCAA tournament. Probably either 1 or 2 streams on Thursday. One of those games will be a 12 p.m. game on Thursday coming up. I got a game that I'm covering at night for a broadcast for water polo, so I'm probably not going to cover any games at night on opening night, but most likely it'll be either 1 or 2 streams this upcoming Thursday, and then Friday will probably be 2 or 3 streams on this upcoming Friday for the first round. But yeah, that link's up there pinned into the chat. You guys are all welcome to join in for the bracket challenge group. Last year we had over 40 plus members join in for the Behind Your Basketball Bracket Challenge group, and wow, we got a bunch of people pouring in for this one. But yeah, looking at this bracket here, the team that got completely shafted, that's Louisville right now. They completely got shafted out of this bracket. That's unfortunate. They get an 8 seed out of this. Both A&M and Arizona were projected 4 seeds by most bracketologists. Yeah, it was wavering seeds, too, for Mississippi State and Baylor. Baylor was projected by most as a 10. Mississippi State was projected as a 7, and they meet up in the 8-9 matchup to take on Duke. That's a bad matchup for VCU. That's just an unfortunate case there in a matchup. So, bubble teams, Xavier, Indiana, Ohio State, Texas, still waiting their names to be called right now in the bubble. All right, here we go. Bottom part. So we're going to move along here in this bracket. This is the bottom part of the bracket here. Third region, bottom right corner. Houston gets the 1 seed. Cougars having a fantastic year. 30-4. 4 losses, 3 of those coming in overtime. Only loss that didn't come into overtime was against Auburn. They play in their region out of Wichita, Kansas. 4 losses by combined 14 points for the Houston Cougars, putting together just a stellar season. SIU Edwardsville takes on Houston. Houston locks up so many teams in the first round. That score is usually like 80-40. That's going to be a blowout. First time in the bracket for SIU Edwardsville. Gonzaga. How did it get an 8 seed? That is frustrating. Gonzaga's been to 9 straight second weekends. That's really up in jeopardy right now. Gonzaga's won the first round game. I think it's like 19 straight times they've won the first round game. They haven't lost since 2008 for them. Or 15 straight times. Georgia as the 9 seed. How is Gonzaga an 8? With that win, I thought at least a 7, if not a 6. Their metrics have been through the roof this season. Clemson gets the 5 seed. Just a terrible seeding there for Gonzaga. Just an absolute disrespect by the committee, putting them as an 8 seed. McNeese. A lot of people talked about McNeese last year being a bracket buster. They get smoked against Gonzaga. This year they take on Clemson. Clemson's got 8 seniors on their team, looking to run it back from last year. They went to the Elite 8 last season. Purdue's really slipped. That seems like a high seed there for Purdue. 4 seed for a team that's playing not so great basketball recently. High Point, going to be your bracket buster here in the bracket. Purdue's defense in the last month ranks 358th. In interior defense and interior defensive efficiency. There's your upset right there. 4 versus 13, a High Point. They were waiting to get into the bracket last year, lost their conference tournament championship, 29-5, taking place in the AMP in Providence. Usually those funky names, those 2-word names, produce upsets. Watch for that one to take place on Friday. Illinois, 6 seed. In Milwaukee, Texas and Xavier both make it to the bracket. Play-in game. Play-in game winner of Texas, who becomes the 4th 15-loss team ever to receive an at-large bid against Xavier, who is rewarded for going 7-1 in their last 8 games, though just 1-9 against quad 1 opponents for Xavier. So Texas and Xavier both get in to the bracket, and Indiana looks like they're not going to be getting in, most likely. Big Blue. Kentucky, the 3 seed. Out in Milwaukee. So unfortunately for them, they don't play in Lexington. They would if they would get the 2 seed, but they're taking on Troy. The Trojans in a 3-14 matchup. UCLA, projected as a 6, dropped to a 7 seed. Going to play out in Lexington, Kentucky on Thursday in a 7 versus 10 matchup here against Utah State. So Utah State gets into the bracket. Another team to mention, Boise State. Their name hasn't been called yet for Boise State. Tennessee as a 2 seed. Tennessee gets the 2 seed, and they will face 15 seed. That's Wofford. Wofford had a ridiculously bad record. I think it was like 19-15 and won their SoCon tournament championship. Yeah, that's a pretty generous matchup there for Tennessee in the first weekend of the bracket. I mean, both of those teams have been clawing and treading water recently. UCLA with a couple big losses for them. They got shredded against Wisconsin to close out their conference tournament. And Utah State, really good record for them. They started off extremely well, though. They started off like 15-1, and they went, I think, something like down the stretch. They did have 7 losses down the stretch in the second half of the year for them. They started off the season really well, but then they trailed late stretch of the season for them. Yeah, that second round matchup, very dangerous matchup, because I texted my good friends after Gonzaga beat St. Mary's, and I told them Gonzaga looks like a second weekend team for them. That's a dangerous matchup for Houston, going up against Gonzaga in that second round match there. And for Houston, they've had some trouble in the past. They got taken into overtime last year against Texas A&M in that 9v1 matchup. Just an unfortunate seeding there for Gonzaga. Like that's a bad seeding for Gonzaga, that they get an 8 seed. Clemson against McNeese State. I think we could get some chaos out of this 5-4 seeding pod in this region right now, especially how Purdue has been playing for them. They have not for sure been playing like a 4 seed. That's one thing for Purdue. Their interior defense ranking bottom 5 in the nation in the last 30 days right now. Their defense has looked awful recently for Purdue. I would not be shocked if High Point pulls off the upset in that first round matchup over Purdue. Illinois going to face in the playing game winner Texas against Xavier. This makes it very difficult for some of these bubble teams right there. Kentucky against Troy, UCLA, Utah State, and then Tennessee against Wofford. Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think Utah State's going to make it in for them. Or for Ohio State to make it in for them. Ohio State. Yeah, I think it's going to be tough for Ohio State. West Virginia didn't get called yet either. Let's go through the teams that haven't got their name called yet. Boise State. Indiana. Ohio State. West Virginia was another one of those teams. Arkansas. Yeah, Arkansas hasn't got called either. I mean, I'm shocked that Gonzaga got put up in that pairing there as an 8 seed, because Houston's got one of the best cultures around for college hoops. And those guys are hungry after last year when they got taken out of the bracket for them. I mean, they've been playing incredible basketball this year for Houston. Like, low-key, they're 30-4. They won the Big 12 Tournament Championship. Kind of a similar matchup they're going to see from what they got in the Big 12 Tournament Championship against Arizona, based on, like, schemes and stuff like that, because the former assistant coach Tommy Lloyd used to be the assistant behind Mark Few at Gonzaga, so I'm 1 day of preparation there. That should benefit Houston in that matchup, based on that they kind of see a similar type of team there from what Arizona is to what Gonzaga could translate in that game. Yeah, VCU has gotten in. So VCU got put as an 11 seed. They take on BYU as a 6. I'll go up to the top of the bracket once again. So this is the top of the bracket that got released earlier on. And we're about to get to the bottom left region here. So this should be Florida's region. Yeah, the history with Gonzaga. They've won 9 straight games in the second round. For them, they've won, I believe, 15 straight first-round matchups for them. They haven't got eliminated from the first round since 2008 for them. They always come prepared into the tournament. Florida. St. John should be the 2 seed out of this region. Their name hasn't got called yet. Florida will take on the 16 seed out in Raleigh. This is the West region on a Friday. Norfolk State. Norfolk State's non-conference strength of schedule was insane. UConn, defending champs, get an 8 seed. Dan Hurley's Huskies as an 8 seed, just up and down year for them. Oklahoma, 9 seed. Safely in the field for Oklahoma, went 6-12 in the SEC. Yet they're in. And they get a 9 seed. The Sooners been clawing and battling and playing really hard this season. Wow. Wow. Memphis as a 5. 29-5 against 25-9 Colorado State. Are we just throwing out random seeds here? Holy smokes. Who in the world in the bracket committee chose Memphis as a 5? Maryland as the 4. Memphis, I'm really concerned about them in this tournament. Their turnover rate is extremely high. They have squeaked out close win after close win after close win. That is stunning that they get a 5. Really good record for them. But if you guys caught the American tournament, I mean, that place was empty for the entire tournament. Grand Canyon. Last year, they upset St. Mary's in that first round matchup. They take on Maryland in the first round. 6 seed out in Wichita. That benefits Mizzou. Don't have to go far for that matchup as they get a 6 seed in the bracket. That's on a Thursday. They'll take on an 11 seed. The final bubble team, or a second to last bubble team, about to be revealed as we just have an 11-10 coming off the bubble. But it doesn't matter here. It's not a bubble team. It's the AQ out in the Missouri Valley playing close to home as well. You got 2 teams playing close to home against one another. Drake. Should be a really fascinating matchup there. 22-11 Mizzou taking on 30-3 Drake. A lot of D2 players led by head coach Ben McCullum as they transferred over to Drake. And Ben McCullum with 4 D2 championships in the last 9 seasons at Northwest Missouri State. Texas Tech is the 3 seed. They take on North Carolina Wilmington. The Seahawks able to beat Delaware in the CAA Tournament Championship. Here we go. This should be the final bubble team as a 10 in the bracket coming up. Kansas gets a 7 seed. Final bubble team that Kansas will face in this bracket. That will be Arkansas. Pig Suey in the bracket. Coach Cal and the Hogs playing out in Providence on a Thursday against Bill Self in Kansas. That's going to be a big-time matchup. That's probably going to be the first game of the day on 12:15 on CBS. St. John's, Rick Pitino and the Johnnies. What a season they have had. Legendary year for Rick Pitino. Just a constant winner wherever he goes. 30-4, taking on Omaha in the first round matchup, and that wraps up the bracket. Those games take place in Providence. In the bottom left part, Kansas, Arkansas, and St. John's, Omaha on a Thursday. Wow. That is a fire bracket right there. I cannot believe that Memphis gets put as a 5 seed. That's the toughest team to figure out for them. They played so many close games this season. Their record is really good for Memphis. But I mean, they're playing weaker competition this year. The American had an extremely down season, and then you look at their conference tournament, the place that they were playing at, Dickies Arena, had so many open seats. So, yeah, crushing for these teams here. Boise State did not make it in. West Virginia is not in. West Virginia, who lost to Colorado early on in their conference tournament, isn't in. That is shocking, because I was getting questions about how far do you think West Virginia could go when they started off the stream today. Boise State, West Virginia, Ohio State, Indiana, Wake Forest. Stunning now, West Virginia. That team, I believe they won their back in November. They won their conference tournament. So 7 bids out of the Big 12. 8 out of the Big 10, 14 out of the SEC, smashing the previous conference bid record with 11 set by the Big East in 2011. So every single team that was projected either bubble or inside the bracket from the SEC got in. First team out, West Virginia, 19-13, did not make it in. Indiana, Ohio State, and Boise State. Those are the 4 teams that were left out. Shocking. Absolutely shocking that West Virginia didn't get put into the brackets. North Carolina 1-12 in quad 1 games. West Virginia went 6-9 in the quad 1 games and is not in. North Carolina 42nd strength of schedule. West Virginia 23rd strength of schedule. Best win for UNC was against UCLA by 2. Best win for West Virginia was against Iowa State, Arizona, Kansas, and Gonzaga. Stunning. Absolutely stunning that West Virginia did not make this bracket. I mean, you got to look at the overall body of work. I know they hadn't beat an NCAA tournament team in 3 months, but still, the committee should have never overreacted to a bad loss against Colorado. That's so unfortunate. UNC had all the opportunities. They got swept by Duke. Couldn't beat Clemson. Couldn't beat Louisville. I mean, that is shocking right there. Absolutely shocking. So once again, going to go right back into this bracket. Here we go for all the teams once again here. Really appreciate you guys for joining in. We got over 1,000 people, but only 100 likes. So if you guys are new here, first timer on the channel, make sure to smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe, ring the notification bell as well if you guys would like to be notified here for future live streams. I'm hoping to cover some of the play-by-play here, live streams for some of the games in the tournament. Probably going to do either 1 or 2 streams on opening day. I'm hoping for sure to cover whatever the first game is, probably on CBS on like 12:15 p.m. on Thursday. I have a game that I'm doing at night for a broadcast for water polo, so I'm out for like the second part of the day. That's why I won't be covering much on Thursday, but probably either 1 stream or 2 streams on Thursday, and probably either 2 or 3 on Friday for streams or so. And then I got pretty busy weekend for myself, so I got broadcasts throughout the weekend that I'm covering for some of the college broadcasts that I'm working with, so it depends on my schedule or so. Just absolutely shocking with some of this stuff every single year that happens or so. Last year was Virginia, that everybody was like doesn't belong in the bracket, and they got smashed in their first round game against Colorado State. Couldn't even muster 50 points. But this is what the bracket looks like once again, as it has now officially been revealed. Auburn, number 1 overall seed, top left corner, as they'll be playing in the South region for Auburn. I'm going to see if there's game times and stuff. I don't believe so just yet, but let's see if there's stuff that's been released, because people have been asking me about like where they're playing. I just looked at on NCAA.com. They don't have that listed, but some sites do. Yeah, they haven't posted their bracket yet on that. Well, eventually that will be posted up with all the sites like that. But Auburn taking on playing game winner Alabama State against St. Francis. Louisville, I mean, that's just a terrible seed right there. I thought they were going to get a 6 seed out of this bracket. They get shafted and they get put as an 8 seed in the bracket. So they're one of the very few teams that in this bracket are way underseeded. And the teams that's underseeded win 60% of their games in the first round. 60% of the time, a team that is underseeded wins that game. Which that's a tough matchup too, because Creighton has been in this tournament before. They're experienced for them. Michigan against UC San Diego, that's the first round matchup. That should be a really good matchup there. And then Texas A&M against Yale. Yale is a team to keep an eye on for. Watch out. They believe that they're better than last year, and they took out the overall number 1 team in this bracket, Auburn, last year in the first rounds. Ole Miss is the 6th, taking on the playing game winner, San Diego State and North Carolina. Out of all teams that, I mean, somebody out of UNC must have been on the committee or something for that. Iowa State against Lipscomb in the first round matchup. Marquette in New Mexico. New Mexico is a little bit underseeded. They were projected by most bracketologists as a 9, and then Michigan State takes on Bryant. And then over in the top right region, second top 1 seed is Duke against American and Mount St. Mary's. Duke's got a pretty good side of the bracket until Alabama, Wisconsin. Oregon could be a sleeper team as a 5 seed out of that bracket. Dana Altman gets his team ready every single year to play in March. Usually they get better and better throughout the course of the season. They were on a lengthy winning streak until they ran into the top seed team in the Big Ten, Michigan State, and lost that game in the tournament. But yeah, that should be a fascinating matchup if it does happen. Oregon against Arizona, former Pac-12 members in round 2. Another team that just got put in a bad draw here was VCU for them. An 11 seed, they take on BYU, one of the hottest teams in America in the last month. Wisconsin is a pretty solid matchup for them. They've got handed some pretty bad matchups in the past, like James Madison last year that they took on. They took on a really solid Colgate team a couple years back and squeaked out a win over Colgate. And this year they get seeded as a 3. They take on Montana in the first round matchup, which the Big Sky's had a lot of trouble picking up first round games year after year after year in the bracket. St. Mary's, Vanderbilt should be a really good matchup there. And Alabama takes on Robert Morris. And then the bottom part of the bracket looks like this. So for those of you that missed it or so, Arkansas is in the bracket. Arkansas got the final team that was on the bubble as a 10 seed in the bottom left corner. Houston in the top right region, region 3. Or that's bottom right out of the Midwest, but as we look at it on the screen here, it's in my top right. Houston is taking on SIU Edwardsville. First time in the bracket. Gonzaga is another team that I feel like their seed was well off for them. I thought they should have been up to a 7, avoiding Houston, avoiding Duke, Auburn, Florida in that second round matchup. They take on Georgia, which Georgia makes the tournament first time in quite a bit of time, having an up season there for the Bulldogs. Clemson and McNeese State, and then Purdue and High Point. Which that's a tricky game there for Purdue. That High Point team is hungry from last year not making it in. This year they returned a lot of those players on that team. Purdue's not playing that great right now. Concerning matchup for Purdue. Going into a matchup against a team that's a double-digit seed, that could potentially be one of those matches that the other team pulls off the upset. And usually it's those ridiculous names too. That like crazy named teams that pull off upsets. George Mason, Oral Roberts, we've seen it from the past. Wouldn't shock me if High Point is that type of team this year that takes out Purdue in round 1. Illinois playing game winner against Texas and Xavier. Texas becomes the 4th 15-loss team ever to get an at-large bid in the bracket. Xavier's body of work good enough for them. They went 7-1 in their last 8. They have the same amount of Quad 1 wins as North Carolina, but they do have 3 fewer Quad 1 losses. They're 1-9 in the Quad 1 games, but it's enough for them to get in, according to the tournament committee. I thought, at the end of the day, that UNC would be on the outside looking in alongside Xavier, too, based on the quality of victory, but Xavier's there as well, which the committee must have taken into account how they've been playing recently. Xavier have been playing pretty good recently, and they lost by just 2 against Marquette for them. Kentucky takes on Troy, UCLA against Utah State, and then Tennessee, pretty generous region they got in that grouping there. Illinois could be a team to look out for them. They got hit with the sickness bug around February, or like late January into early February. They got back healthy once again for Illinois. If they can play defense, that second round game, if Kentucky and Illinois both win that first round matchup, that's going to be a shootout right there between Kentucky and Illinois. So that's whoever wins that, I mean, it's game on to take on Tennessee. After that, out of that part of the bracket, Florida, you got guards all over the place on that team. They're playing just incredible basketball recently. They take on Norfolk State. Kind of a interesting matchup there because Norfolk State, those MEAC SWAC schools, they schedule some of the toughest teams to play against in the non-conference schedule. So these teams are playing all against ranked teams. That's why we're seeing like teams out of the SWAC and MEAC start off the season like 1-10, 2-12, because their record's so bad. They're scheduling all Power Fives on their schedule. UConn takes on Oklahoma. That's going to be a battle. Holy smokes, that will be a battle there. Memphis, Colorado State. Memphis was an interesting team coming into this bracket for them because their seed had been wavering. Really good record. Quality of competition, though, was not so great for them. But according to the committee, they get a 5 seed for Memphis, which seems way, way high for their seed. Colorado State, I thought, would have been 11. So I'm going to look here, see if there's any times that dropped for these games. They usually will drop, yeah, so they haven't dropped yet for these times. These usually will drop within the next hour or two. So, yeah, these times usually drop around like 8 o'clock Eastern time. That's when they start putting on the network and the times. So usually like an hour or two from now, these times will start to be put on because everything right now is TBD at the moment. I'll go through out of region and stuff in just a moment. Like any of these teams playing out of region or so, that could be a disadvantage for them. Grand Canyon made it back to the bracket. They beat St. Mary's in round 1 last year. Maryland's been a red-hot team recently. They're a dangerous team out of that top left corner bracket. Mizzou and Drake, that's a really good matchup there to start things off. 2 completely different styles. Mizzou's going to want to play fast. Drake's going to try to force stop, slow it down. I mean, what a season Drake has had for them. Those are all Division II guys for the most part, for most of their players, and they went and transferred to Drake with their head coach. Majority of those players used to play for Northwest Missouri State under head coach Ben McCullum, and then he was named the new head coach at Drake, and now they're playing with Drake at the D1 level. Texas Tech against UNC Wilmington. UNC Wilmington squeaked by, I think Delaware was like a 12 seed in the CAA. They squeaked past them to win the Colonial. Kansas, Arkansas, that's going to be one heck of a matchup. And then St. John's against Omaha. You got 3 legendary coaches out there in the bottom left pod between Bill Self, Rick Pitino, and then Coach Cal. Houston, beneficial matchup. They take on SIU Edwardsville. That takes place in Wichita. Auburn going to take on a play-in game winner. That will be played in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm just going down the line here for because they got it placed as the 1s and 2s and 3s. St. John's going to play in Providence at the AMP, so that's a arena that's familiar with them. They take on Omaha. Big disadvantage for Omaha. They have to travel all the way across the U.S. to face St. John's. Tennessee and Wofford, that's close by in Lexington, Kentucky. Texas Tech against UNC Wilmington. That's a disadvantage for UNC Wilmington traveling to Wichita. Wisconsin, that's kind of a disadvantage for Wisconsin playing this game against Montana out in Denver. Yeah, if you look at that on paper, that's one that Wisconsin should take. But, I mean, the location is actually a disadvantage towards Wisconsin for that 3-14 matchup. Purdue, that's a disadvantage for Purdue. They have to travel to Providence. They play High Point. Yale takes on Texas A&M. That's out in Denver. Clemson plays in Providence. They'll take on McNeese. Michigan has to play out west. That's against UC San Diego. That game will take place in Denver. And this game's close by for both of these teams. It's going to be well represented out in Wichita, Kansas. Drake against Mizzou. VCU. That's a disservice to the bracket for VCU. They got put up against BYU in a game that will play out in Denver, Colorado. That location is a disservice right there for VCU. Arkansas, Kansas, going to have to travel to Providence. UCLA, Utah State, both of those teams out west, but they'll be playing out in Lexington, Kentucky. And then Gonzaga, Georgia, they play in Wichita. Louisville, Creighton plays in Lexington. That's huge for the Cards there. That's basically a home game for Louisville, playing in their home state. Florida against Norfolk State. Florida going to be playing in Raleigh. Same as Duke. That game will take place at the Lenovo Center, Raleigh, North Carolina. Alabama will be playing out in Cleveland against Robert Morris. Robert Morris from Pennsylvania, not too far away from Cleveland. That's like Western PA, Pittsburgh, PA. Bryant will be playing Michigan State out in Cleveland. Kentucky will take on Troy. That game will take place in Milwaukee. So will Iowa State against Lipscomb. Maryland and Grand Canyon. That's out in Seattle. So that area of travel not benefiting Maryland for that matchup, though. Maryland's been red hot second part of the year for them. Grand Canyon's kind of been a letdown this year. They were projected as like one of the top mid-majors going into the season, and they got a 13 seed for them this year. I thought that coming into the year, they'd be seeded higher, either a 12, pushing it to an 11 for Grand Canyon, based on last year they beat St. Mary's in the first round matchup. Arizona is playing in Seattle against Akron. Memphis is going to play Colorado State in Seattle in the 12-5 matchup there. And Colorado State playing some really good basketball recently. Top perimeter shooting team in the last 30 days. And then Oregon going to be playing close to home. That's in Seattle, taking on Liberty. And then over in Milwaukee, we got games with Illinois and Ole Miss. Both of those 6 seeds taking on play-in game winners in the bracket. Marquette and New Mexico. That's good travel for Marquette there, as they're the 7 seed. Not so much for New Mexico, as that game takes place in Cleveland. Oklahoma, UConn playing out in Raleigh, and then Baylor against Mississippi State playing out in Raleigh. So yeah, that's the whole bracket there. I'll go through the graphic once again, let you guys see it for one more time. But that's what we got for the bracket. If you haven't done so already, feel free to sign up for the Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Challenge group. That link is posted in the chat. All are welcome to join and be a part here of this year's Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Challenge group. Actually, big shout out to my channel sponsor as well. Before I do wrap up here, going to do a quick sponsor read here for my channel sponsor. This stream is sponsored by BetUS, where you can bet on the season sports action with BetUS. It's an A+ rated sports book, which has been running since 1994. It's available in all 50 U.S. states. With BetUS, you can bet on your favorite sports teams, players, and sporting events. And for new sports bettors who go to the BetUS website, you'll receive a 125% bonus on your first 3 deposits of up to $2,000. Use my BetUS channel link, which is posted in the description of this video and pinned into the chat to get started with BetUS, or you can click the QR code at the bottom corner of the screen. BetUS features sports betting on multiple sports, and coming up, of course, we got the March Madness tournament, so no better way to bet with BetUS. It's got college hoops, NBA basketball betting, NFL football, NHL hockey, baseball, international soccer, golf, tennis, NASCAR racing, and numerous other sports. It also has a player prop builder where you can put together props, player props, and also team props as well. So check out my channel sponsor, BetUS. The link is posted in the description of this video, also pinned into the chat to get started. BetUS has been changing the game for over 30 years. That link in the QR code, bottom corner of the screen, also in the chat to get started with BetUS. So just this bracket is the one that I'll be doing. So I will not have any games for the first four. I got games in person those days for my college broadcast, and no first four games I'll be doing. I'll be working on a lot of my broadcasting stuff coming up and getting a lot of good opportunities and stuff like that. Next stream will be Thursday, probably the national CBS game at 12:15. On Thursday, that'll be my next stream. I'm probably going to do just 1 or 2 streams on Thursday because I got a college water polo game at night that I'm doing a broadcast for this upcoming Thursday night. So probably 1 or 2 streams during the day and then probably nothing at night or so. I'm probably going to be live 2 or 3 times on Friday, most likely. Yeah, good point there. 14 SEC teams in the tournament, only 4 will make the Sweet 16. I was watching a video about something. So SEC with a historic year with their conference. A couple years back, the Big 12 had a historic season with a lot of teams in the bracket, and they had a lot of teams struggle that year in the bracket. So even though a conference outgains another conference in terms of bids, and this SEC is really strong, it doesn't mean that these teams will do all well and advance every single one of them to the second weekend for these teams. So it all is like matchup centric and everything about matchups there that this is all about in the bracket. Yeah, 14 teams out of the SEC. That smashed the previous record of 11 set by the Big East. That was in 2011 there. Unfortunately, no. So yeah, my call yesterday didn't make the ESPN Sports Center top 10. It was women's lacrosse that I covered yesterday. It was an insane highlight that was like a behind the back shot. It was a crazy highlight reel play, but they actually it was a tough competition for like a lot of the clips and stuff like that, because we have conference tournament games going on yesterday and also college baseball. There were some clips from that in men's lacrosse. So they actually didn't, as I covered a women's lacrosse game yesterday, they didn't put any women's lacrosse clips in their Sports Center top 10. It was all college basketball, only men's basketball only from yesterday with the conference championships. There was a couple NBA clips in there, and then there was a few college baseball clips that made the cut, but mine didn't make it in. I guess it was close to the cut though. Yeah, good question by Alex there. So Kansas got a 7 seed out of this. They certainly have not been playing like a 7 seed recently for them. Really struggling for Kansas with this team to get it together. But yeah, I'm stunned. I have no clue how in the world North Carolina made it in. Like the committee must have got paid or something like that. Like North Carolina went 1-12 against quad 1 opponents. I'll go back one more time before I sign off and read the difference between North Carolina and West Virginia and how in the world the committee made this choice. So North Carolina, net ranking of 36. I'm going to find West Virginia. North Carolina, net ranking of 36. West Virginia, lower net ranking of 51. Wins above bubble, North Carolina 42. Wins above bubble, West Virginia 43. But then, these are the metrics that I'm looking at right here. North Carolina, 22-13, 13-7 in the ACC. 13 losses for an ACC team I think that's too much based on the season that the ACC has had, an extremely down year for them to get 3 teams as locks, and then North Carolina to be the 4th out of the ACC. Over in the Big 12, they got 7 bids. West Virginia got left out, 19-13. Same amount of losses as North Carolina in a tougher conference. They went 10-10 in the Big 12. And then here's the quads here. North Carolina 1-12 in Quad 1. West Virginia went 6-9 in Quad 1. So quality goes to West Virginia right there by a landslide with the teams that they beat. North Carolina 8-0 in Quad 2. West Virginia 4-4 in Quad 2. And then North Carolina 7-1 in Quad 3. West Virginia going perfect in Quads 3 and 4 at 9-0. North Carolina had a Quad 3 loss. And then I went through the best wins, best losses. Best win for UNC was against UCLA by 2. That's the best win that they had. Bad losses for UNC, Stanford, Wake Forest, and Pitt. And then for West Virginia, best wins, they beat Gonzaga, the WCC tournament champion, Arizona, the Big 12 tournament runner-up, Iowa State. They beat Iowa State by 7, and they beat Kansas. So West Virginia beat 4 teams in the bracket. North Carolina beat 1 in the bracket. West Virginia did get shredded against Pitt, lost that game by 24, but I think this is some recency bias right here. Some real bad recency bias by the committee, because West Virginia's last game, they lost to Colorado, who was horrendous this year. And, I mean, anybody has a bad day. Anybody could have a bad day or so. But to have that many opportunities by UNC and not capitalize and take advantage and pick up just 1 Quad 1 win out of 13 opportunities compared to West Virginia, where they had 6 Quad 1 wins out of 15 opportunities. I mean, that's just sad. Absolutely sad there. So yeah, that is just it's all about the basketball brand and the money for NCAA. That's what it looks like it is. Once again, a team that it looks like should not be in the bracket. We'll see what happens coming up for UNC. We've had strange things happen in the past. We had UCLA, the year coming back from COVID, the 11th seed in the playing game, make it all the way to the Final Four. So we'll see if there's any possible case about that right there. But that's going to be a tough region to do it all. The Michigan State's picked up some really solid road wins this year for them on the road in conference play against ranked opponents. Iowa State, when healthy, has an 18-1 record when healthy with their starting 5 when they're all healthy. So that's what they're going to get if they can get past Ole Miss in that first round matchup. And they're going to have to win the playing game first against San Diego State. Yeah, Boise State was another team that didn't get called. Indiana, Ohio State, those teams got left on the outside. But yeah, appreciate everybody for joining in. Wow, we got a lot of big numbers on this stream. Before I sign off, make sure to smash the thumbs up, hit the like, hit the subscribe. If you'd like to join in on the Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Challenge group, feel free to do so. That link is posted in the chat. All are welcome to be a part of this year's Bracket Challenge group here, folks. And appreciate for being a part on the stream for the last hour and a half here, giving my rundown about the bracket and the teams here in this bracket. And I'm hoping to cover some of the games coming up for the tournament, so stay tuned. Probably either 1 or 2 streams coming up on Thursday. I'm hoping to cover that first game on Thursday. It hasn't been confirmed what time or who's playing first just yet. The time should be released within the next half hour or so. So the times usually get released upon 8 p.m. Eastern time is when the times come out in the networks for the bracket. But yeah, make sure to join in Behind the Arc Basketball Bracket Challenge. Link is in the description of this video, pinned in the chat for all of you guys who would like to join in. Appreciate it for being a part here to stream. I'll see you guys soon. Looking to be back on Thursday covering some of the games for this year's tournament. And yeah, I'll see you guys soon. Feel free to keep on coming back to my live streams here. And enjoy the rest of your weekend. Happy bracketing, everybody. And before I go, big shout out here to the channel members as well. So here we go. All channel members get a shout out at the end of each and every single one of my live streams. We got Jason, Bradley, Warren, Kelly, I Am Ghost, the Nija Player, Asia, Ice Baby, Katie Ogie, SGA Sports Talk Channel, Lonely Satellite, Michael, John, Norma, Jonathan, Guido, and Mark. Thanks for joining in, everybody, being a part on the stream, signing off here for this one. And the whole field of 68 has been released. Happy bracketing, everybody. Best of luck on your brackets. Hope to see you guys soon. Hopefully going to cover some great March Madness games. And enjoy the tournament coming up. See you guys soon.